Hello and welcome to MIP TV. With me is Bob Cook, a transactional analysis therapist, a TA therapist, and he's continuing TA Made Simple, a series of videos discussing concepts of transactional analysis, but decoding it, making it accessible, making it very straightforward. Maybe you're a student or maybe a member of the general public and you're interested in TA, but you want it kind of jargon free. So in this edition, we're talking about decontamination. Do I have to wear some kind of a mask, Bob?
I know it's an odd word, isn't it? Really, it's under the sort of section of theory in transaction analysis called structured pathology. Basically looking at how we deal with the hurts and the pains of the past. But the first thing, anyway, of this whole process is to think of ego states. So in the previous part of this whole set of videos on TA Made Theory, we talked about ego states, parts of the self, and we talked about the PAC model, parent, adult, child. And there's an assumption for a healthy process that a person moves at will between different ego states. So you can decide whether to actually borrow your parental messages of healthy messages, or you can go to your child ego state, or you can stay in your adult ego state, and you know which one you're in. You know what time zone you're in. You're not acting like as a 3-year-old when you're 44 to solve problems.
So it's conscious. This is a conscious process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unconscious in the sense that we are moving fluidly through different parts of ourselves. Yeah, in the sense of that's what Freud talked about when he talked about the superego, the id, and the ego. You are, in that sense, unconsciously moving. But Eric Berne said that we also consciously could move from one part of the ego state to the other. Yes. So we could actually borrow our parental messages and and we could also go down to the child part of ourselves. But you're right. But really, when we move every moment of the day from one ego to the other, we don't think about it. It's like a fluid, spontaneous action. But there's an assumption that we know what ego state we're in terms of healthy processes. Like, if you learn TA, it's important to learn that when you come from a parent ego state, you're thinking and feeling and believing as if you were your parent figure. If you come from child ego state, you're thinking, feeling, behaving as if you were a kid. And when you come from the adult part, you're thinking, feeling, behaving appropriate to the age you are now. There's an assumption there. Okay. Now, when we talk about decontamination, which is you're quite right, it's a strange word in some ways. The question is, what happens if those parts of the self get jumbled up? In other words, you think you're coming from adult, but actually you're coming from a parent figure. Or you think you're coming from adult, but actually you're acting as if you were a child, but you don't realize it. Those parts of the self get jumbled up. So let's look at this then. You've got two particular contaminations. One, the parent-adult contaminations. So in other words, you accept parental slogans as if they were adult reality. So let's look at one. Let's look at one. I don't know. Perhaps you believe from adult, the age that you are, that all Scotsmen are mean. Now, if you really believe that, for example, I'm thinking not
that we do, because that'll be a stereotype, but carry on.
Or Welsh, or whatever, anyway.
Yeah.
Say that was the slogan in your household origin, and your father believed that was reality. What would happen? You would never probably go to Scotland. You would probably never surround yourself with Scottish people. You wouldn't trust probably Scottish people either. You would have a prejudiced process against the Scottish race, probably. Other examples of accepting parental slogans if they were adult reality might be kids should be seen, not heard. Now, if you really believe that from adult, then what does that say? Then you might go through life actually believing that it's really important that kids go to bed at 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock, or that when you go around to a cafe, for example, and there's kids around, you have a prejudice system. Or if you know the parental slogan, people cannot be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you believe that from your adult, then you won't trust anybody. You'll have problems in relationships. You'll be suspicious of people. So it's when we accept and take on parental slogans as adult reality. So there's a contamination of energy from the parent intruding into the adult. So you go around like your father or your mother, who may have given you that parental slogan, and it's called prejudice belief systems.
And I think we've all met someone like that, haven't we, in our history? Yeah. I can think of a number of people through my life that I've met, and that fits them like a T, Bob.
Yeah, absolutely. So a client comes in and says, you know something, I've had real problems in my life in relationships. I don't seem to be able to keep them. But you know what? I don't really trust anyone. That's the problem. And when you go back into their history, you find out that that message came from the mother or the father or the aunt or significant other people. And if they still believe it as adult reality, they have problems, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that would be a contamination. So in transaction analysis terms, one of the jobs of a therapist is start clearing that contamination up. Now, the other type of contamination here is a child-adult contamination. And that would be around the area of delusions. So you act out your fantasies and delusions from childhood as if they were today. So, I don't know, you're in a party, coming out of a party, and you hear some people say, some revelers saying and laughing behind your back, and you think, well, I bet they're laughing at me.
Yes.
You could stay in contamination, if you like, and leave that child system. Or you could go back to them and say, were you laughing at me? And if you believe what you said from adult, that would be fine. Or you might just say, I bet they're saying that to be nice to me.
Yes.
So you can keep to your outdated child image. So it's people who take that fantasy, that childhood decisions into adult reality and believe it is fact. So there's a contamination. So basically, in decontamination, where it's a strange word, but it's basically helping the person understand when they're in parent, understanding when they're adult, and understanding when they're in child. So you can come from an adult ego state in the here and now, rather than act out from the past or the present.
Yeah, it reminds me of that famous saying, if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you've always got.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a really good saying for this.
Yeah.
And a psychotherapist is especially a TA therapist who's thinking of ego states all the time.
Yeah.
If a person is acting out from their child in the here and now, but believe they're an adult, they're going to have problems in certain areas and might act out in deluded ways.
Yeah, yeah. And we see that sometimes on reality TV shows where people...
that grandiose position, which they think actually is real, but actually it's coming from a child position. It's something TA therapists are really looking out for, but they have to really be thinking about the parent-adult-child model of ego states that I talked about earlier. But they're then trying to sort out the contaminations so the adult is free of these contaminations, so they can be in the here and now and operate from a here and now belief system rather than an outdated one. That's decontamination. Sorting out and helping them sort out so they know when they're in the here and now, not coming from a prejudiced place or a deluded place. That's
decontamination. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's something that a lot of teachers would recognise that.
Yeah.
Where, certainly when I taught, we had a lot of students who came, and I taught younger students, and they would have some ideas that were completely from the parents. Completely and utterly from the parents.
But they think it's an adult.
Yes. Yeah, they think they were theirs until you kind of examined it and helped them examine it. Then you realised it wasn't actually their ideas, it was their parents.
Yeah, that's the prejudice side. And just thinking of delusions, think of a client that I saw who came in, and one of the belief systems I have from childhood was that if they thought hard enough, they could see what people are thinking.
Mm.
That's a delusion, but they believed it.
Yeah, mind reading.
They believed they could work out what people were thinking. You know, pretty bizarre if you like, but if you trace it back, it'll go back to a time probably of paranoia and predictability. Another would be more traumatic history, the more bizarre the contamination.
Yes,
I can kill people with my cosmic rays. You know, it becomes very bizarre. But if you trace it back, you see where the contaminations come from. The problem is the person's never an adult.
No, and in fact, for some children, that can be a very strong reality. I'm thinking of Maya Angelou, the very famous American writer, who wrote in the first part of a biography, "I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings," that she was raped, and she told a parent or a grandmother who did it, the whole of the village where she lived, or the town where she lived, found who this person was, and they killed him. And she literally believed that her voice would bring death, and she had selective mutism for a number of years based on that child fantasy that her voice brought death.
There we are. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So a TA therapist would help a person clear up those contaminations, so the person could live a life which is from adult, which isn't contaminated.
Well, as always, Bob, you make the complex simple. It's, TA, when you talk about it, is always very, very, very straightforward. And, if you're watching this, you're watching this particular episode, it is in the playlist. So why not go back? If you've just found this, why not go back to the beginning and look at the whole of them? Because you get a real good picture of what TA is. And let's have some comments downstairs. If you want to ask Bob anything, I'm sure I'd be happy to go into the comment section and respond to you. So as always, Bob Cook, it's a real pleasure hearing about the particular TA theory. And in fact, for the next episode, we're going to be looking at deconfusion of the child ego state. That's the next thing we're going to be looking at, isn't it?
Yeah, that is fascinating, because it leads on from decontamination, as they sort out when they're parent, adult, and child. Then you can have a contract with the client about which ego state you're going to work with, and this one is about decontaminating the child ego state.
Well, I'm sure we're going to be looking forward to hearing that, watching that. So don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell button on the top to be a subscriber, and then as soon as we drop another video, you'll get automatically updated. You don't have to keep calling back; it'll do it automatically. And as always, Bob, thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy.